What's wrong?
I spent a good part of my allowance on this new cream rinse, and it's neither creamy nor rinsey.
The makeup for most of the monsters, you know, obviously it comes from our great makeup department, Todd McIntosh and John Vulich. Todd McIntosh is the on-set guy, taking the pieces, applying them on set.
My half of the job is to take whatever it is and make it fly.
And John Vulich is the guy who's actually building the monsters in his lair.
I think we managed to kind of elevate the stakes for television by trying to really get a motion picture level of quality.
This is as good as it gets in terms of prosthetics and latex.
Vulich creates these extraordinary appliances, but Todd is there. While he's making the actors look beautiful, he's making them look real.
Todd has a real interest in this genre that and a passion for it that he brings that's really fun and exciting.
As a child, I was absolutely fascinated by dark shadows.
No! No!
What Dan Curtis created was a town and a family that you felt something about, and these strange things that happened to this family. It went out and grabbed you and pulled you in. Buffy is almost the same thing. We have this little town. We have this group of friends in this world that you get involved in because what Joss created was a story about people, not about supernatural stuff. That's not where it started. It starts with the people. So you're drawn in. Buffy is really, to me, exactly what I wanted to do. It's what caught my imagination as a 6-year-old, and here, 30-some-odd years later, I'm back into that world, and I'm part of the creation of it.
Watching Todd McIntosh, our makeup artist, work, it's cool because you take it for granted, but it's such a machine, and he's so talented, you know, with what he's doing, and he also just happens to do my beauty makeup. And I think I look fabulous.
Oh, Buffy, it's like we're sisters with really different hair.
Now, originally, I was instructed to make Buffy a soft and sort of earthy character. And we did a very soft, muted green makeup with a little eyeliner and just kept her very natural. Well, they came to me and said, it's not working. This isn't Buffy. We need her to be Buffy. And I'm so glad they did, because that change was exactly what we needed. We needed the mall girl. We needed the valley girl. So instantly I switched everything over to frosted eyeshadows, bright turquoise and aquamarines, and frosted lip colors and bubblegum colored nails, and it blossomed the whole character. The hair department bleached her hair up, they went up to the blonde, and that was the creation of Buffy.
Angel's a vampire. I thought you knew.
Look, Buffy, you may be hot stuff when it comes to demonology or whatever, but when it comes to dating, I'm the slayer.
Charisma's makeup was always about that character. I mean, you can't go anywhere with that. She is what she is.
Since my character was kind of like a Cruella de Vil, that it was important that I stayed dark, my hair stayed darker, and I remembered having highlights, and the network coming back and saying we'd prefer to keep her dark, because I think the kind of character she was.
Oh, were you feeling a little envious? You could belong to a fraternity of rich and powerful men in the bizarro world.
Just insensitive, kind of cruel person, so she would have darker, more severe hair. And I think also Buffy being blonde, that it was just important that there be a difference. And then the redhead. You know, it's always about getting the gamut of colors.
You're not going anywhere until we fed. I was actually the test dummy, as I put it, for the vampire makeup. They established the vampire look on my face, and that's how I originally met the cast and crew, was in vampire face. Nobody had met me until they came out to do a camera test. So when they saw me at lunch, as normal, they didn't know who I was.
What did you say your name was?
Darla. At the beginning of the show, it was a pretty grueling process because they were still establishing the look and playing around with colors.
I found, because I wanted to do monsters and I was forced into learning how to do beauty makeup, the more beauty I did, the better my monster makeup became. Because I understood the subtleties of skin tones and skin variations and how to shade and blend, which you have to learn for beauty makeup that you don't necessarily need for a monster. The more I learned about aging makeups and how to structure a face so that it was unattractive, so that it was weird looking and made you feel something odd, the better my beauty makeup became. The two are symbiotic. For Drusilla, for example, is a perfect character that is beautiful, As a beauty makeup, it's a very stylized one, set for her, and when she morphs into a vamp, it's still there.
Here you have this thing with this, you know, covering a lot of your face, and it could be really horrific, but it was able to sort of achieve this pretty and scary and eerie and creepy, still compelling where you're not, you know, off-put by it. He wanted to sort of still look slightly sexy, and you know, and I think he was able to capture that.
The idea of her prosthetic was to be a little bit different than the general ones that we have done. We wanted her beautiful, but dangerous. So it was sort of snake-like. There is a smoothness and roundness to the forehead that isn't in some of our other prosthetics, and we wanted that viper look. So her makeup did adjust a little bit, but my idea for her was always like a 1930s black and white movie star makeup, which we modernized as we went along.
My best advice to actors enduring makeup week after week is go to sleep in the chair. The makeup artist would prefer that you keep still, and you can take a nice little nap. It beats working. In general, I tend to really enjoy being made up like that. As a boy, I think I never look cooler. I can never get a girlfriend to kiss me when I'm in that makeup, so it's a different thing for girls, but I guess, I don't know. But for me, I love it. I used to play around with makeup as a kid, so, you know, this is just hog heaven to me.
With the Spike character, when James came into the trailer, and I'm making him up, and he says to me, oh, I've got a little bit of a scar there, if you want to just fill in the eyebrow. I said, no. I got the razor out and I shaved his eyebrow out of that area, and we painted the scar in and made it part of the character. We had already painted that scar in when I made a call to Optic Nerve, have you sculpted his appliance yet? Because he's got this scar on. And we had a lot of discussion about what happens to the scar in the forehead when he morphs. Where does it go? And they actually lifted it up as if the skin stretched a little bit, so it's a little higher, a little bit more arced on the prosthetic than it is on his skin. But that was built out of one of those moments. My work is about transforming an actor. When it comes to suits, like our werewolf suits and the snake suit in general, Optic Nerve runs the suit. They constructed it, they put the actor in it, and tie them into it, and then we do the makeup that blends them in.
Another somewhat elaborate character that we came up with, the reptile boy, that we did as a partial bodysuit from the waist up, and the rest of it is actually just plastic rings that have a latex texture on them that we segmented kind of like those little toy snakes that you see that you can wiggle around. It's very similar to that, but done on a larger scale. And we just felt with the kind of movements that they were requiring for the scene that we'd be able to move more rapidly and be more flexible for the kind of action that they were looking for.
We had lots of people with ropes and pulleys and contraptions to get this snake to rise up and fall down, and then we had another version of the snake that floated on a little sort of a seesaw thing, so you got this eerie, you know, I'm out at sea thing with the snake.
The rest of it was just a standard makeup like it would normally do, glued onto the face, and we tried to give it this kind of long mouth with a stretchy kind of membrane that you oftentimes see on snakes. You can see the little pink on either side of the mouth, where we actually just used an appliance to cover the actor's mouth to make it look like that webbing. We worked in conjunction with the physical effects department that did all the wire ringing. They had him on a brace that they had 2 or 3 guys pulling him back and forth and up and down. And they just kind of pinned him on the sides on a harness that he wore underneath it that was hidden by the suit. So we didn't do the actual operation on the flying rigs. We worked in conjunction with the physical effects department that handled a lot of that stuff.
Almost every week we have some kind of a monster, be it a demon or a vampire or some new scary kind of creation.
An idea will come from the writers, from Joss. He will write it into the script. I want a pale, veiny-looking demon.
We sort of come up with a general description, most of the time, of how a character looks. We'll just sort of say, he's a big guy with horns.
That concept, in a couple of sentences, goes to Optic Nerve.
When we get the script in, at that point, we might start to do some cursory designs. Generally, we do 2 or 3 different variations of what we kind of think the creature should be. Sometimes the characters will be very well described. Sometimes there won't be a description at all for it. Sometimes it'll be a description and I'll get thrown out somewhere through the process.
We know absolutely nothing about what's coming up. It's all in that secret, locked away storage place of Joss's mind, and we get it as a surprise when it comes to us.
So there's somewhat of an evolution that we'll submit designs. Generally, one of them will be close to what they're looking for, and then we'll do some refinement on that and get it pinned down. And this process usually happens pretty quickly. Probably like 2 or 3 days, we'll get a good idea of what the design's going to be about. Once we have all that settled, then we start dealing with the actors and the performers that are going to be playing these characters, who we bring in for head casts.
So you start with the life cast, which is about an hour-long procedure. Some people are really claustrophobic, some aren't. depends on the person. Once the life cast is done, you have a three-dimensional representation of the actor's face. You sculpt with clay the new shape that you want it to be, make a negative mold on that. Out of that negative mold, you clean it out and put foam latex into it, which is a whipped foam process. That goes back into the mold, it's clamped very tight, put in the oven for about 5 hours. And what comes out is the foam rubber prosthetic that we apply. The vampire makeups are very systematic. It starts with fitting the actor. We fit them for that first. Then we set the teeth up. If they have a custom set of teeth, that's fine. It's been built by Optic Nerve and it's sent for them.
If there's a featured character, we like to custom make teeth for each particular character. Start with a life cast of the performer, and we just sculpt in clay. Sometimes we'll use actual acrylic teeth as a part of the sculpture. The featured characters, we try to be very particular about how they wrap around their teeth and try to give them as much ability to pronounce words.
Uh-oh, this does not look good for our heroine.
Here is one of the silicone molds. After we do the sculpture, we'll generate a silicone mold, and right now she's putting some material into that. And after she's done, we'll end up with a final product that looks something like this.
If they are background vampires or fighting vampires and they don't need to speak, then we have generic shells, which are the teeth on the outside with a little sort of cup behind it, which we fill with acrylic relining material, put it in their mouth, it sets up around their teeth, and then about 6 minutes later you have a semi-custom set of teeth. The problem with them is they're very bulky. Since they're built to fit almost anyone, the person can't really speak with them in, and they will distort the face a little bit. So we really try and do custom teeth whenever we can. When the actor sits in the chair for the makeup, it's very systematic. Clean the face, apply the glue, set the appliance down, the appliance is glued down, then you deal with the edges. So you've got this very, very fine, soft foam appliance, and it feathers out onto the skin. But even when you've got the best edge, you still have a ridge around it where it blends with the skin. So edge blending is the next step, where we take different products, glues or latexes, and fill them in and do that final blend into the skin. Then comes the coloring, which may be 2 or 3 different layers of color. A foam appliance is a solid opaque piece. Human skin is translucent. So when you put an opaque covering on half of the face, and the other half of the face is just its normal translucency, if you get the wrong light on it or the wrong set of colors, it will go gray. So what we tried to do in the coloring is color the appliance red or blood tone or a mauve blusher tone, which is sort of a pinky red tone, and then put the colors of skin over top of it. So you were still reading red through layers of color to try and match them into the skin. And then detailing, things like veins and shadowing around the eyes and putting in beard shadow if you've covered over a man's beard and it's very white there, and then you suddenly see the beard shadow, you have to put that back in. All of those details are done. Then finally we currently go to airbrushing to do all of our shadows and highlights, and then take that down onto the neck and make sure the ears are done and the hands are done to match. And we added darkness around the eyes. It was we had to. It was too bland without it. I found that the monsters were not looking mean anymore. We were getting that sort of animal feel that I was looking for, but they weren't supernatural.
You know, it's so great to walk into the trailer and, you know, say good morning to a couple of vampires and, you know, walk past by some guy with one eye on his forehead.
That wasn't plain fair, Missy.
This is the positive from the makeup we did on John Ritter for the episode Ted, where he plays like an android.
How about a nice game of Parcheesi?
They just recreated this whole side of my face, except I did have false teeth, and I wore a different kind of a metallic deodorant, just, you know, to piss off Sarah.
This house is mine.
The technical creation of that part where his mouth is open is really, really hard. The dentures go from inside his mouth on one side to outside his mouth on the other side.
We had come up with this trick that we used on another film called Castle Freak, where we have this set of teeth that, that on one part of the teeth, they'll go on the outside of the mouth, and then the other part, they actually fit inside the actor's mouth and go into it. So it's kind of hard to tell here, but on the positive, you can see where his lip actually slips here under this form here that was meant to take place of the teeth. Now this gives the actor mobility on this side of the face where he can kind of, can't quite talk, but at least give some expressions, but it looks like the face is eaten away on this side. Now when John came in, he was really nervous about the cast. I think he either had gone through one before that wasn't really successful, or he had some qualms about it. But at the same time, he was an absolute trooper, and I explained to him how I wanted to avoid a cliche and do something kind of unique, and he seemed to appreciate that and actually was willing to go the extra yard as far as all the discomfort that was involved in putting these pieces in, and you know, went ahead and did that for us, which I thought was really good. It's always a sign of a true professional.
You're fitted with a rubber mask, and the dentist came out and knocked out my teeth and made fake ones for me. And I mean, it's just as, you know, as blue ribbon as you can get in filmmaking.
I think one of my favorite creatures of the second season, fish guys, which would be our version of the creature from the Black Lagoon. And we ended up making these suits that were really tight and form-fitting, and I think we kind of avoided a common look in suits where it's this kind of bulkiness where it looks like someone's wearing a rubber suit, and they were done so tightly on skinny guys that they looked very natural, and I thought those worked pretty successfully. Those suits needed to work in the water, in a swimming pool and out in the ocean, and we had to engineer them in such a way that they would hold up under these kind of conditions, and they seemed like they held up pretty good.
That peel, that was an appliance put over an appliance. So there was levels there. So we glued the fish piece onto his skin first, and that's all completely painted like the fish. Then put separator, which I think was KY jelly at that instance, with a little bit of blood in it, and then glued an entirely new appliance over top of that, which was already scored inside, so that when he went like this, we knew where it was going to tear.
Generally what we try to do is we'll try to do the appliances in two pieces because it's just easier for application purposes. We'll have a back of the head. It's either like a bald cap, or oftentimes it's like a cowl, almost like a scuba diving cowl, where just the face pops through it, and then this goes on top of it like that. And it's just easier to glue, you know, to glue the nose and the cheeks and everything if you have access to it, as opposed to a mask that's all one piece where you really don't have access to get the paintbrush in and glue it on. So it makes for an easier application, and also gives the performer more expressiveness because it's attached to more areas of his face than a mask would.
No weapon forged can stop me.
You have to crank up the volume knob on your face. Not so much the volume knob, but the visual, to keep that rubber moving, because after a while you don't want to move your face anymore. And it starts to hurt, because the appliance cannot be glued on with equal tension everywhere. So, you know, they stretch a little piece over here and they pull a little piece over here. Like it's sometimes very much a problem. If they pull it up too much, you can't really blink properly and your eyes dry out. Or if they pull it down too much, then you can't get your eyes open to even see. Actors hate having their eyes covered up.
The character of the judge is obviously the most extreme makeup in that show. The two parts, surprise and innocence. There were vampires in full close-up. There was Drusilla in full beauty makeup. There were masses of vampires. There was the burn makeup on Spike, where his face is all scarred up on the side, plus the judge. There was so much happening in that episode, we actually referred to the judge as the Smurf, because that blue shade, it was actually rather interesting. It was sort of a sky blue with a white modeling into it. It was an interesting character. And I believe that's also one of the few actors who's played two roles on our show. That was Brian Thompson playing Luke, as well as the judge.
I've found over the years that people just like gluing stuff to my face. I'm not sure why that is. I wish they didn't. But it's okay.
Got our second Emmy for this right here. This is for Buffy. The first Emmy for Buffy and the second one for our company.
I don't think there's an episode we did that Todd and those guys shouldn't have gotten an Emmy for. You know, I think it was a body of work kind of thing.
It was quite an honor, and I must say I've been very, very proud of our show. A lot of shows, especially like ours, that have a small following at the beginning and then only grow later, don't get recognized right away by things like the Academy. And we were nominated the very first year we were on the air, which was wonderful. We didn't win that year, but we were nominated again the second year, and we did win. So that was the one great thing about that year, is we walked away with a lovely little golden statue.